Hi.
Good.
My name is Henry Faber, a small business owner and resident of Ward 19. I relocated my family business to Toronto 5 years ago because we believe Toronto is Canada's greatest city, stable, sustainable, vibrant, and progressive. Yes, we chose to live here, but I'm concerned that the city we thought we knew may lose the things that drew us to it in the first place, and not just because of the services we may lose, but because of the process that has been employed as part of that determination. I'm taking time out of my jam-packed schedule of meetings and deadlines and administrative hassles to take an opportunity to speak as a Torontonian and a taxpayer. So I've gone through the KPMG report, watched the streaming footage of the various committee meetings, and even deputed during the Parks and Environment Committee meeting. I was struck by the following. KPMG agreed on record that the scope of the report is a poor reference for making decisions, as it simply does not take into account the financial, social, or cultural ramifications of efficiency opportunities. Nor does it provide a credible impact comparison of these recommendations to other cities of comparable size or consideration to even draw a parallel. If the report's own authors acknowledge this, why is it being used as a reference to the administration to make decisions? How can such a thing be discussed in the context of budget reviews and program cuts without accompanying risks and outcome analysis? Well, it's been continually noted that this is just part of a larger process. Divorcing the numbers from this larger context seems like a colossal waste of resources and time, one that has now been exhaustively chronicled in public record. With real decisions looming in September, it's unlikely there is enough time to bridge the gap between what's been provided and what we need to know to make informed decisions. It is abundantly clear that the core service review's original directive was not informed by the core values of the public. Maybe the current administration needs to establish this baseline first so we're all on the same page. At the very least, acknowledge that statistics it gathers with its own tools are not only statistically relevant, but representative of the core values of its citizens. Torontonians appreciate what they have and would pay more, not only to keep services, but to ensure that everyone in the city has equal access to those services. As a small business owner, I can appreciate striving for optimal efficiency, but I would never do that at the cost of the integrity of my services, nor that of my customers. I urge you to reconsider what's at stake when you reduce service reviews to the question of, should we be in the business of? If you do not maintain and in some cases look to expand the level of service provided on the social, cultural, and environmental fronts, you risk turning the city into nothing more than a collection of smooth, clean roads. That is nothing more than a highway. That robs a city of what makes it stable, sustainable, vibrant, and progressive, and ultimately, the kind of tax-paying residents that it attracts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have a couple of questions for you. Got Councillor Carroll and Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. I don't want to keep you long, Henry, because recently a woman tweeted that she's waiting for you at the Drake Hotel.
Yes.
But you've mentioned the environment, and it's been a few hours since we talked about that. Is our work in the area of environmental, whether it's through the environmental grants that are within CPIP, whether it's through the Toronto Atmospheric Fund or TEO that we discussed a couple of evenings ago, is that attracting people to the city? Is that one of the things that attracts people to do business and to live here?
I think the important thing to acknowledge is that people might not know about those individual things, but they're so interconnected with all the other services and the other things at play that make our city great, and all the other services that are, often employed and need to be utilized to make those things happen. And I think that I think it does. I think they're really important.
So the interconnectedness is actually part of it. So if we were to say, eliminate this one, save that one, we got a problem if we do that.
Absolutely. I mean, especially without any feasibility analysis. I don't understand how we can make decisions and say, well, we can save some money here. But just from the dollar from the, in the ledger and the bank account or whatever isn't enough about the long-term effects that can, result from a drastic action like that. And no action, like no sort of overhaul of this level without thinking has ever amounted to anything historically, like in any city anywhere in the world. You have to actually see the plan and take everything into consideration, which is why I don't think a few months is really a viable sort of time frame to make these kind of decisions.
I think KPMG agreed with you a number of mornings.
Many times.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Okay, hold on. Sorry. We're on questions?
Yep.
Who's JD? Oh, Janet Davis, sorry. Councillor Davis, sorry about that. Go ahead, Councillor. You got 2 minutes.
Thank you, RF.
What yes?
So I hear you saying that this analysis is just not adequate to make the kinds of decisions that we ought to be making. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes.
And that we ought to have the budget with us as well, so that we understand the actual numbers associated with these options?
I would think it's imperative, really.
And do you think it's necessary we understand the user fee aspect to it as well, the revenue, at least that piece of the revenue?
I would think so.
Do you think we ought to understand what the surpluses are?
I think that goes without saying.
Do you think we ought to understand what services we're going to provide before we usher thousands of our workers out the door?
I think that would be necessary.
So do you think it all ought to come together to make informed decisions?
I don't understand how we can decompartmentalize this the way that this is being done. It doesn't make sense. I deal with a lot of information in what I do, and this simply does not compute.
Do you think the filter of nice-to-haves versus must-haves is a sophisticated enough approach to determine what we ought to do in the City of Toronto?
I'm afraid that's just inadequate in the scope of something as complex and demanding as the City of Toronto.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perks. Yeah.
My anniversary.
Oh, Henry, don't run away.
Hold on one second. Councillor Perks has questions. You got 2 minutes.
So, I wanted to continue along the lines that Councillor Davis has. There's one sort of piece of the conversation that she didn't ask about.
Yes.
You mentioned that you had, I know your girlfriend's waiting for you. I'll make it as quick as I can. Your wife? Oh, I'm very sorry.
Just because we're on public record here.
For the public record, there we go. Yeah, that's very important. There's a whole bunch of people behind me here twittering about it, so we got to be careful. You mentioned that you had been watching a number of the committee meetings on the KPMG report. You've been here today. Have you ever in your life seen such a range of people with such a range of backgrounds and interests and points of view come together to speak so passionately about protecting the Toronto we love?
I've never seen anything like it. Other than voting, I've never participated in any sort of political forum in my life. And I've come twice now over the past 10 days because I love Toronto, actually, and reading what has happened and reading how it's all coming together, I think it's worth, everyone has to speak up and say something, speak their mind if they're not happy with this.
So I'm not going to read out your deputant number, but you're the one before 70.
That's correct.
Are you amazed that out of the 68 who went in front of you, every single one of them spoke about protecting and enhancing public services?
I'm actually not surprised. It's been said that only taxpayers are working in the city during the day, and that's why, they're not here during the day. But here we are into the wee hours, and I haven't had anyone's support of any of these ideas that have been presented by KPMG. So I'm not surprised. I think Torontonians know what they've got, and they're willing to fight for it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah. Councillor Kelly?
Do you believe that there is a systemic indebtedness to in the budget process for the City of Toronto of between $500 million to $750 million per year? Do you believe that?
I'm confused about that number because many decisions are happening up until we got to this point and we started learning about this problem that didn't seem to really meaningfully sort of contribute to that number, or did in a way that had nothing to do with spending. Sort of dismantling certain programs that were put in process and in motion, and creating debts from that, and creating sort of penalties and that sort of thing.
I'm trying to bottom line it.
Sure.
I don't want to be rude.
Yeah.
But do you believe that there is a systemic debt, annual debt, in the budget that we spend to run this city of between $500 million to $750 million a year? Do you believe that?
No.
What do you think it is? No, that's no. What do you think it is?
I mean, truthfully, I think if the kinds of decisions that are being made now, or the kinds of processes that are being put in place right now, are indicative of the way money is being handled in general, I would say that all of this is self-created and unnecessary. And so there's really no mounting debt, per se. There is. This is my perception. I don't understand, for example, why a bike lane that was put in and approved a couple of months ago, for example, gets ripped out for 2 or 3 times, 4 times its cost, for example, after it was approved and it was put in. That to me is that's kind of wasteful. Like that, I don't understand why Transit City stops, for example, and there are.
Thank you. Sorry, sir. That's 2 minutes. It's over.
Oh, okay. Any other questions?
The rules. Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. We're going to go Ken Wood and Ricky Lachey.